And you will know my name is the Lord. I'm walking here.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Groovy.
What I wanted to do was have us record the Cloverfield episode for like 10 minutes and then start the recording. And then we could like mix in previous conversations, like blips all
Our
throughout.
first found footage episode.
Right, just to confuse the hell out of people. Like, why are they talking about Scooby-Doo? They were just talking about Cloverfield. And we wouldn't be allowed to say Cloverfield also for like the first 20 minutes. So when people came in, they'd be
What
very...
is with your obsession?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, that's the second time you've done that.
You don't want us to say the name of anything that we're talking about anymore.
Like, are you afraid of some voodoo priestess or something?
He's
Two
mystery
different
boxing.
reasons here. One, yes. For the Cloverfield episode, I think it'd be hilarious because it's supposed to be the found footage idea. You don't let the audience in on the trick. They have to experience it firsthand. They gotta be confused. It's all about mystery. And now I hope everyone is aware this is the actual opening of the show. On the other hand, the previous one we were talking about with Scooby-Doo, the idea, you can't mention the villain's name. He who must not be named. I think it's a hilarious concept. Everyone else is frightened. I just think it's hilarious. The snake-faced guy is just too scary to talk about.
So,
And if we can apply that to Dracula, fantastic. And if we can make Shaggy basically the Harry Potter of his world who is destined to defeat Dracula, be it in, some sort of race,
How is this
that's
the
fantastic.
opening to the show?
Because I didn't write any notes ahead of time here, so I'm just...
You never write any notes at it.
Why don't you write notes anymore?
I do write on occasion, for some shows.
For the other shows.
Look, I watched Cloverfield like 3 times today, so I should have a couple things to say.
I've watched it twice in 24 hours.
Okay, if we're sticking to this plan of not mentioning the monster's name, I have a suggestion.
Well, I think it's too late because we've already done it a bunch of times. But go ahead.
Well, yeah, but I just want to pretend like we're sticking to that because it's funny.
That's what I thought.
Can we refer to the monster as the crab-legged one?
I like it. He's not so crabby, though.
No, we only say that he's a lion and he's huge.
They actually mentioned that during the commentary, during the end credits.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, Matt Reeves is talking about the movie when they were doing the trailer. They needed people just screaming stuff, so he came in and he wanted to try it. It sounded fun. And he shouted out, "It's alive! It's huge!" But he didn't realize he said it too fast, so it came across like he was saying, "It's a lion! It's huge!" So he didn't realize this was an issue until he checked the internet and found out people were freaking out about Voltron coming.
I love that for a brief sliver of time, there was a sizable contingent of the internet that thought that J.J. Abrams had just dropped a low-key Voltron resurrection on us.
And a found footage style.
Yeah, that's the surprising part.
Here's the thing, though. I just said this to you guys not that long ago. There is no proof that Clover is not a row beast. Now, add in 10 Cloverfield Lane to that, they could be building to a Voltron movie. Nobody said otherwise.
Each movie is a limb on Voltron.
That's the connection, of course.
God, I love how this is going to start off our tangent of just conspiracy theories throughout this movie.
Mike, I like your other one you stumbled on into last night.
No, we have to build up to that.
We gotta say, okay, fine. Audience at home, this is the mystery box in action. It's not Khan.
Quick, just start saying weird things, and so people can Google them and find hidden sites.
We gotta, use them, say things backwards. They gotta record it, throw it backwards, find out I'm just saying nonsense either direction.
10, 16, 16.
Even at Niage.
Box Office Pulp recommends
bacon.
Slusho brand soft drinks.
Deep Sea Nectar.
Out of curiosity, has anyone, besides myself, seen 10 Cloverfield Lane yet?
No.
Okay. I'm gonna throw out some minor spoilers there. It has jack shit to do with Cloverfield.
I think everyone's realized this by now.
Nothing. There is no connection at all, besides the fact that the name Cloverfield is used in both movies, but they're referring to completely different things.
Or is it? We don't know
No.
how J.J. Abrams' brain works anymore.
I'm pretty sure it doesn't work like this. But, I mean, that doesn't take anything away from 10 Cloverfield Lane. If you have not seen the movie yet, I wholeheartedly recommend it. Just for John Goodman. He is spectacular. The movie itself is actually really, really good. Just don't expect any Cloverfield links. Like any. Not a character name, a location, monster. Even themes are pretty different, and filming styles are completely different. It's totally
Isn't it
different.
even like a period piece also? Or
No, 10 Cloverfield Lane is set pretty much now.
okay.
Isn't it like slightly in the future, actually?
No, I think it's 2015. There's nothing in it to support it taking place in the future.
Well, is there anything that says it doesn't take place in the future? Once again, fucking road beast.
Mike, not everything is Voltron.
Everything is Voltron. Voltron had everything to do with Deadpool. That was setting up the Voltron
Look,
movie.
I just like Mike getting excited, just saying, everything is Voltron, the Voltron is the life!
If you take anything away from Box Office Pulp, it's that everything is Voltron until proven otherwise.
This is going to be the
I
worst
might be
episode we've ever
Voltron.
done. This is going to be
Wait a
the
second.
worst episode we've ever done. I love it.
Can't we make the argument that Box Office Pulp is Voltron? I mean, it's
Yeah.
the four of us coming together to create something bigger than ourselves that battles Robies.
It just happens to be Box Office Pulp guy, and that's not good for the universe at all.
I'm sorry. We're not Voltron. We're a really bad Captain Planet knockoff at best.
With your powers combined, I am Box Office Pulp. Oh God, someone
Almost
kill
got
me. Box Office Pulp recommends recycling, or I'll blow your fucking head off.
Why did Box Office Pulp just turn into a hobo with a shotgun? I'm not complaining. I'm just confused.
Well, that's Box Office Pulp guy's power. He harnesses all the movies we've done episodes on.
Also, I have to throw a note in. We're really fucking up our Cloverfield intro because we can't introduce ourselves, but we have to use each other's names a lot. Like, Mike, what's your opinion on this? Good thought, Mike.
Well, then do the intro, Cody.
No, we're not doing an intro. We just have to use each other's names all the time so people understand that we're PP's people.
I feel like people know who we are by now.
No, they're coming fresh. They saw the mystery
This is
box.
the crossover episode.
They saw the mystery box opening, revealing a Cloverfield episode, and they're like, what's this? And they just jumped in. They didn't know what it was.
Bill.
I do that at parties all the time, actually. I'll introduce
I know you
myself
do.
to someone else, yeah. It works as a great cover when you don't remember people's names.
Okay, so my name is Kimbabwe.
And I'm Rob.
And Cody is alive, and he's huge.
Oh, my feelings. You swole. Anyways.
So okay. Does that mean that the Boogans are the little parasites? Like,
We're all the boogans, MB. We're all the boogans at heart.
I just want to see a really horrifying underground segment where giant frogs attack in night vision.
Oh, God.
With T.J. Miller.
T.J. Miller.
As
I
Weasel.
wonder how much he was really used, because he's technically the one filming the movie, and for some sections he was filming the movie.
Most
But for a lot of sections they had, like, the DP wearing Miller pants.
I feel like they said for the vast majority of the movie, T.J. Miller was actually there, if not actually filming.
I think he was probably on set, but they said a lot of his work, like, he got to come in and then react to stuff afterwards. So, like, a lot of his lines were just probably, like, 80 yard over top of everyone else's.
That's where It's Something Terrible comes from.
Which is probably one of the best parts in the movie.
It's terrible.
It's terrible. Just keep going.
Fucking
He's not
babyface Miller, by the way. When I was rewatching it, it's like, Jesus Christ, was he 12 when they made this?
He didn't have the mustache or anything, or that
that's
Silicon
the thing
Valley swagger.
wasn't that the thing that put him on the map? Like,
Yeah, this was
really-
pre-Yogi Bear.
Yeah, he was unknown at the time.
He was just a stand-up.
It's weird.
Yogi Bear.
It's weird. It's like almost all of the actors were unknown at the time.
Some of
And
them
T.J. Miller is the one who went on to do other things.
The one you never see.
It's like, crap, I'm blanking on her name. The other, Lizzie Kaplan.
Lizzie Kaplan.
That was her first big thing, and Jessica Lucas,
Technically, the dude who
Odette.
played Jason is going on to do things.
Odette Gusman. I mean, she's probably the one that's like, well, between her and Kaplan, like, she's probably the one that's gone on to do the most besides T.J. Miller.
I have to check out what Mike Vogel has actually done with his career. Not that he hasn't. I'm just curious.
He's in something, or something that's coming out.
He's Under the Dome. He's Dale. I'm
That's
pretty sure
where
he's
he
the main
went.
character.
Okay, well, he
Uh,
works steadily.
He's in other stuff.
Maybe I'm thinking about the guy who plays Rob is in, like, some show coming up or something like that.
Oh, he's also in the Bates Motel. He does a lot of TV work. Pan Am. That ran for a year.
I'm sorry, I just like being under the dome, being F8 for actors. What happened to that guy? He went under the dome.
Went under the dome. He's in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake from 2003. Blue Valentine, which I have not seen, but I know it's a movie. The Help.
We are the worst movie podcast. I have heard that Blue Valentine is a movie that exists, but we won't be talking about that tonight.
I have, in fact, seen a poster for it, proving it does, beyond a reasonable doubt, exist. Okay, I jumped to Michael Stahl-David's profile, then I'm even more lost, because I don't recognize a lot of these. Robin Wright at the Congress, that one. Okay, I own that one, I've seen it. But then, Just in Time for Christmas, nope. Show Me a Hero, nope.
You know, we're not listing all of the movies you have or have not seen with each particular I'm sorry. That's not what this podcast is for.
Oh, fuck. Okay. Well, I don't know what we're doing here then.
So we're here to talk about Cloverfield.
You can't speak its name.
I have to beep that now. You gave me work. I don't even know why we're not saying the name anymore. I don't even understand.
It's gonna be like Kill Bill. You're gonna have to bleep it out each time someone tries to say kiddo.
Why? We're like 5 minutes in. Why is the episode already off the rails? It's such an easy conversation to have.
Never on the rails. He's right.
I hate this fucking show.
Okay, now that we've driven Mike off the edge, we can bring it back in and actually do the show proper, kind of. Anyways, folks, we're here today to talk about Cloverfield. If you haven't gathered by this point, I know it's confusing. Maybe a little, disorienting. I don't know. Speaking of disorienting, did anyone see this movie in theaters?
Yes.
Did you end up puking all over yourself?
No.
I
don't really understand what's so disorienting about this movie, to be honest.
Question, Mike, do you actually, ever get motion sickness or anything?
Motion sickness? Not necessarily. I can get, on occasion car or boat sick, but no, not really.
So if you saw this movie on a boat, would it be a problem?
Yes.
Okay.
Honestly, I feel like the motion sickness thing was like a handful of people that just got reported over and over and over again because clickbait.
I mean, this is all anecdotal, but one of my friends, she did see it in theaters, and she complained it just gave her an instant migraine sitting through it. And I could see that, because even watching it on a small screen, they're not shying away from the camera shake or the focus. I mean, there's a lot of scenes where they kind of do an autofocus thing. That could be disorienting. That could probably be disruptive.
I think the sound
on a full-size screen
disorienting.
Oh, the sound design is amazing, but we'll get to that. But I think on a small screen it's perfectly acceptable because you can see the entire thing really easy, whereas if you're in a theater, especially up close, you might have to move your head to get all the pieces, so it just feels like stuff's moving all around you. I don't know, I could definitely see why it would make someone feel sick in a full-size theater.
My theory on that is, it really depends on how invested into a movie, not in terms of whether or not you like it or not, but just invested in terms of there's a level you go past where you feel like your world is what you're watching in front of you. It's not as if you're just watching a screen. Because I had this happen to me recently. I was rewatching Man of Steel, and I had never noticed until that point that a lot of that movie is actually shot on handheld.
It is, yeah.
I didn't notice that until a couple of viewings. I mean, I've seen it a couple times, but just this last one, I was like, "Wow, this is really shaky." I never noticed that.
It's always kind of been distracting to me.
But I feel like with Cloverfield, that's one of the things where if you're getting really into it, you get more susceptible to that kind of stuff because everything you're focused on is just within the perimeters of the screen. It's perimeters of what's happening in front of you, and that sort of stuff I can see happening if you're really getting into it. But I never personally had it because I've only seen it on televisions and stuff.
Yeah, for me, it's as far as found footage movies go, it's one of the ones where the camera really doesn't move around as much compared to others. Even in the helicopter crash scene, the camera is perfectly still while that helicopter is going down.
Yeah, a lot of movies, and it's funny, this was something that was labeled on Cloverfield when it came out, but way too many found footage movies go overboard and shake the camera violently with every step, despite the fact that that's not what footage looks like when people are walking with a camera.
See, I think the problem is they're thinking of found footage for a modern audience, if someone records something now, they do it on their cell phone, and there's not like any weight to your phone at all, so people end up shaking it a lot. They also hold it stupid. They're not using both hands to kind of steady it or anything. So most cell phone footage is just shit and confusing and shaky. Whereas if you actually have a camcorder, at least that's kind of anchored normally, at least kind of pushed up to your face, so it shouldn't be that shaky unless the person there is just violently shaking their head for some reason.
Yeah, people actually know how to hold camcorders.
No, if you ever watch a found footage movie, they always treat it like it's some sort of relic from 2,000 years ago.
What is this?
How do I record? Oh, it's my face. Oh, God. Autofocus.
But God knows they never drop that camera.
That's technically in Cloverfield, too, but at least that comes from the actor legitimately not knowing how the camera works.
True.
What's funny is that now with the invention of the GoPro, it's almost like that can never happen again now.
GoPro actually kind of makes me motion sick, depending on the lens.
Yeah.
Is it the idea of just it being non-stop with no kind of shakes or anything to jostle you out of it? Because I feel like that would, if I stared at that for a while, it would just give me vertigo.
No, I think with the ultra-wide lens, like that's kind of disorienting. Because you get that big fisheye lens and you just see way too much. The aspects are all wrong. Plus, it seems like a lot of times if you're looking at good GoPro footage, they have really jacked up frame rates, so it seems too smooth. Which is weird because you think, clippy footage would be worse. I am not a scientist. I do not understand it.
And if we're anything, it's men of science.
Men of science.
Can that be the new tagline?
Men of science, box office pulp. Could you imagine, though, like if you watched Cloverfield in one of those 4D theaters, how perfect an experience that would be? Like, you're sitting there and they're just shaking the seats constantly to make you feel like you're in an earthquake. They're blowing in, like, dust and smoke to make you feel like you're on the streets of New York as buildings are collapsing.
And it's in 3D.
Oh, jeez.
They're unleashing insect monsters onto you.
If this movie was in 3D, you honestly would not know what was happening.
You would die. You would go into a seizure.
You'd just be running out of the theater. It's a lion, it's huge.
What, Voltron? And everyone starts running down the street. It's Voltron, he's come to kill us.
The best part is, Mike, I'm not sure if you were excited about that or if you were scared. I'm not sure which way it's supposed to go.
What?
Both.
It's Voltron, he's going to kill us, finally!
What's funny is that up until now, I wasn't under the auspices that Voltron was killing anyone. Mike added a new wrinkle into that one.
It's Voltron.
Well, if you look at that trailer, if people are taking that original trailer as Voltron just ripped the fucking head off the Statue of Liberty and threw it at people. He's here to kill us.
There's a new giant on the block, Lady Liberty.
That's why I stand with Prince Voltan. Voltar, I'm sorry. Voltan is from Flash.
Dive!
Yes.
Well, I almost just spit my water all over my computer.
So you're going to be short-circuiting in any minute.
That was like a 2-minute struggle to get that gulp of water down.
Oh, wouldn't that be great if the episode just ended suddenly due to technical errors like in Cloverfield?
Someone is recording besides me, right? I'm not sure if mine's actually working.
Mine's going.
Okay, thank God. I'm just going to be stuck with this image now. Murdering everyone in New York.
This is what God wants.
As they all just run into his giant robot maw, happily screaming for oblivion.
Yeah, it's finally Voltron.
They all just line up on the bridge.
There's like a church of Voltron that's just lined up.
Can
They're all
we be allowed to reboot Voltron? I know they've got something coming from Netflix, but I want them to scrap that immediately and make our version.
Or Voltron's evil.
No, he's
we
not
have
evil.
to take down Voltron.
I like how we keep referring to him as Heed. As if Voltron is his own entity.
It's like we anthropomorphize the Megazord or something.
We're saying Voltron does not have a swangin' dick there.
I mean, he has the sword.
It's not Transformers 2.
Could you imagine being the dude inside of Voltron's dick?
And I'll form the cock.
Okay.
Firing lasers.
Okay, now that this conversation has gone on, I have a new theory. I think
All right,
Voltron is being framed. I think the Clover monster has actively gone out of his way to frame Voltron of a crime he did not commit.
So it's a row beast. I'm proven right.
MB, that was a valiant attempt to try and get us back on topic. And I'm not sure if I should just immediately derail it again because fuck you, or if I should actually try and be a good
We're
host
on the
and make sure
same
this
side,
podcast-
Cody. We
I know,
are
that's why
on
I'm,
the
like,
same
No, we're all
podcast.
becoming our own personal evil Voltrons.
And combined, we form one giant asshole.
It's a James.
Okay.
He's huge.
It's a
Box
James.
Office Pulp guy, asshole of the universe.
So, I'm going to put my foot down as much as I love this conversation.
It'll come back, trust me.
It'll come back. We're gonna do some Cloverfield talk about now. Why the fuck did we pick Cloverfield? Did we all just want to talk about Voltron?
Because the movie that came out this month.
That's right, but none of us have seen it but me.
Well, we're not doing an episode on that movie. We're doing an episode on Cloverfield. So this doesn't matter.
I'm trying to be topical, man.
I'm trying to. You guys are giving me nothing to work with here. Come on, I'm giving you rope.
Cody, I know you haven't been recording podcasts for very long, but you do not get 20 minutes into an episode and say, so why are we doing this again?
I'm trying to give you something to chew on here. Tell me why you like Cloverfield, alright?
Okay, look. I actually really have loved Cloverfield for a number of years. So much
Good, give me more.
so much so that when I first saw this, I was like, it came out in 2006, right? I was about 16.
2008, actually, I think.
Oh, I was about 17 then.
Okay.
I was about 17 years old when it came out. I saw it, and I was so enamored with the movie that I immediately made the dumbest email address in the history of the world, Cloverfield Invasion.
Man, that could have been worth money for this year.
I have not changed that email address in years.
I have had to send MB important emails, important business emails at Cloverfield Invasion.
And
Hold up. MB, is this your actual email address to this date?
yes,
And you just put this on the air? You are really counting on the fact we have 0 listeners.
look, I have not.
If you would like to complain about Box Office Pulp, remember to email Cloverfield Invasion at whatever the fuck.
Yahoo? Gmail?
I'm not saying.
Oh.
Well, you have 2 to send it to then. One is correct, one isn't.
It's
Hey,
actually
look,
at AOL.
But the fact of the matter is that
were all the Batman ones taken, even with like 19 numbers at the end, like Batman 1893?
It was a magical summer for MB, okay? Get off his ass.
I'm not mad about this. I'm just amazed.
I do
It's
have
actually
another.
Cloverfield Invasion, Batman at gmail.com.
I do. Okay, before either of you continue this, I just want to point out I do have another email address that is Batman related. I'm not going to reveal what it is.
All right. I feel more at ease now.
Cloverfield versus Batman at yahoo.com.
Possibly.
That's gonna come one day, believe me. We almost got Batman versus Godzilla that one time.
But the point of the matter is that this movie left such an impact on me that I did that and haven't changed it. That's how much this movie has stuck with me. Because honestly, I loved this movie. I think it is one of the most, like, I wouldn't say a monster attacking a city is quote unquote original, but it's done it in such a way that was so refined for its time and refined for the monster genre, like the kaiju genre, essentially. I mean, Cloverfield is essentially a kaiju, but it was done in such a scope and such a way that the format perfectly lended itself to it that I felt that there was no other way this movie could have worked. And I was just so enamored with the fact that it took something like a monster attacking a city and made it legitimately scary and frightening again, which I never actually felt I'd seen. Like, you see the old Godzilla movies, and it's like, yeah, those are, you can love them as much as you want, but you can't ever say any of them are really frightening. This one was a legitimate horror movie. And it was one done on such a massive scale where I was like, I legitimately believe that. That's amazing. The special effects were really good. The initial scenes of the Statue of Liberty being attacked, believe it was the Empire State Building, is the one that goes up in flames when they're on the rooftop.
Is it? I thought, was it the Chrysler Building?
Chrysler.
As someone who's seen this 3 times today, I really should remember my buildings.
Yeah,
It's all
but
blur.
well, like, the special effects really hold up. They do a really good job of not showing the monster for a lot of it, holding a lot of suspense. They have stuff that really veers off track, like the attack which to this day is one of the most terrifying scenes featuring a fake monster I've ever seen in anything. I cannot get through that scene without wincing at least a couple of different times because the combination of the sound design and the design of the actual parasites themselves and just the way they move, like really spider-like and crab-like, and the fact that it has multiple eyes and it's all shot in night vision, like all these elements blend together to create something that is viscerally just horrifying to look at, and you just don't want to see it because you just don't know what it is. You don't know like where it came from. It's just there, and I love that about this
scene. The kind of weird droning noise you hear in the subway. Apparently, they worked with one of the sound designers who's a regular for David Lynch projects, and that's why they went to that guy because David Lynch is terrifying. We need a terrifying subway.
That's actually David Lynch.
Himself, he's in there.
Just have him lean into a microphone and hum.
Oh yeah. I find the parasites adorable.
Have you seen
I would totally get a parasite plushie.
They look like the graboid second form.
Oh yeah. What was the name of the second one?
Ass blasters?
No, that was the third.
No, the third one. Sorry, folks, to the internet.
To the internet, let's pause. Because we have to figure this out.
This is going to eat at me all day if I don't know what the fuck those things are called.
You have to go to birdopedia.com.
I'm on the Wikipedia page too for Tremors 2, and I was hoping there'd be a community section like, they're named. Oh, there is. Shriekers.
Shriekers, that's it.
Shriekers.
Anyway, enough about Tremors 2.
Everyone learned something, yeah. I like how we can skip over that one. Oh, fuck Tremors 2.
I love Tremors 2.
Fred
Really?
Ward, man.
You love people? Oh, wow, I'm outnumbered. You guys love Tremors 2?
I like Tremors 2. I listen, I prefer the first one, but I enjoy Tremors 2.
Okay. I'm more of a Tremors 4 kind of guy, so what do I know?
What?
I honestly enjoyed Tremors 4.
What?
I like the twist on making it old-timey.
You mean Tremors 4, the beginning?
That's correct.
I'm more of a Tremors the series man myself.
Box Office Pulp, Civil War.
Why are there so many Tremors sequels? How can they spread that concept that thin?
I just was on the living room the other day, a brand new one.
Oh yeah,
it's got Jamie Kennedy.
Yeah,
I love how it's not as bad as you'd think. It's actually passable.
I just love that there is a Burt series of films. Burt is the key figure of a franchise. There is a flashback movie that details how the Burt family came to that town.
It's very strange.
With old-timey Michael
sets
Gross.
Up more Burt and Company, like it's all gonna be Burt from here on out. And then they announced Kevin Bacon wanted to come back for a TV series, and they're like, no more Burt.
We're going aces this time.
They were all aboard the Gummer train until Kevin Bacon came back into the picture.
The Gummer train.
All right, so that's all we have to say.
Kevin Bacon is at a point in his career where he can just be like, hell yeah, I'll do a Tremor series.
And Friday the 13th.
Is that true? Is the actual one come back for? Oh,
but could
you got my hopes up.
imagine?
I could. That's why I had to ask.
Just his ghost avenging murders.
It's not a Scooby-Doo episode. We don't need a Kevin Bacon ghost.
But anyway, back to Cloverfield.
Back to Cloverfield.
Building on something MB was saying earlier, Cloverfield is kind of a fascinating subject in the history of the modern horror movie, because whereas Blair Witch Project pretty much introduced audiences to the found footage movie, it was Cloverfield that made it a franchise over a decade later. But what I find interesting about that is, even though an entire subgenre was revitalized by Cloverfield, almost none of those subsequent movies have followed any of the lessons taught to them by Cloverfield. Like, Cloverfield is still arguably the best found footage movie.
I wouldn't even say arguably. Like, I would say that most people consider that one to be the top tier, along with Blair Witch Project.
Like we were saying earlier, like, so many found footage movies do a ridiculous amount of shaky cam to sell you on the fact that it's a handheld camera. Cloverfield doesn't do that. So many found footage movies have zero character development and no storyline going on because they think just spectacle filmed through a camera lens is going to be enough to make the movie an experience. Cloverfield doesn't do that. Cloverfield could have very easily have been a Universal Studios ride, but
I kind of think there's two schools of thought when it comes to found footage. You could have something like Frankenstein's Army, which is designed to basically be a funhouse ride where you're not supposed to develop characters because you're just supposed to throw Frankenstein Nazi monsters at people. And Cloverfield took the other rep. Hey, it worked. That movie was a fun movie. Or you could have something like Cloverfield where you're trying to get an experience. This is, they basically are trying to do a large-scale movie from a very limited viewpoint, and this was the best way to present that. So I don't think they're all trying to go for, like, just shitty spectacle. I think there's just two viewpoints. Do you want to make this a funhouse ride, or do you want to make this more of an actual film?
I think Cloverfield really toes the line between the two, because there's so many funhouse sequences and so much funhouse staging, but it still treats it like it's a real movie.
That's true. Like, the tunnel scene for sure is definitely, big kind of set piece moment that's got you in the moment, like you're kind of stuck on Parasite's The Ride, new from Universal Studios.
Or just Clover, suddenly jumping out of smoke and hitting the helicopter.
Yeah.
Or just
I'd even argue like the Statue of Liberty head falling on the ground in front of all the characters. Like, you could see that if you were like on some sort of tram ride at a studio tour.
Well, even lower key scenes that don't have anything to really do with a monster, like this scene where, and I keep forgetting her name, Lizzie Kaplan's character.
Marlena
Diamond.
Yeah, Marlena.
80s pop
the
star.
The scene where Marlena, spoilers, dies, is all set within, like, a containment unit, and that still manages to be almost its own little funhouse thing, because it's a new environment, it's a new setup, but it also has a really, like, gory, out of nowhere, unexpected death just happen immediately, and it sets up one of the most horrifying images, which is her just turning and bleeding out of every possible pore, essentially, and saying, "I don't feel well." Like, that shocked me the first time I saw it.
Then she explodes in a shower of gore.
Yeah.
I want to be in a place sometime where someone just yells, "Bite!" and then somebody explodes.
That's how this podcast is going to end.
What's funny is that
Box Office Pulp recommends, "Oh God, bite!"
Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the fact, like, the movie's marketing was so secretive that we didn't really know a lot about what the movie was going in for a long time. What did you guys think it was? Like, what did you think the actual... Besides that.
A lot of people put a lot of thought into it beforehand, and they're obviously smarter than I am. Like, they figured out that if you doubled the poster over, you got a hint of what the Cloverfield monster looks like. Like, just based off of the wake in the water. I don't know, did you guys ever see that?
No.
I
Basically,
for that.
Yeah, if you take the Cloverfield poster, the one where it's shot out, from the ocean looking towards New York City, you see like a bunch of destroyed buildings and smoke rising in the air, and there's a long trail of water. Someone flipped the poster and connected them, and you kind of get a hint of the monster's shape based off the wake in the water and the destruction left behind, the smoke rising up in the air. It's not like a detailed picture or anything like that. If you cross your eyes and stare past it for 10 seconds, yeah, you get a general shape of what the monster is, and I thought that was really clever. And people figured that out, if memory serves, pretty fast once the poster was released. And a lot of people kind of dismissed it because, no, it might not be anything at all. It could just be some smoke and some shitty Photoshop, or maybe that's what the monster looks like. Turns out, it's the general shape of the monster, so nothing was given away. But I think it was enough of a hint. It's more of an argument. Was this a sea monster? Was this a space monster? And it turns out most of the viral marketing didn't play into the film much at all anyway, so you couldn't use that as a hint.
Just backstory.
Well, there's a lot of backstory about a fictional Japanese company that was doing deep sea mining.
Teragato
for Slusho.
For their deep sea nectar.
And that's even debatable if that's really what caused it or not.
Technically all the viral marketing is considered canon. It was, at least when it was coming out. Like, that was Abrams and Goddard and all that were designing that stuff.
Basically what the story of the monster is that it was underneath the ocean for, 2,000 years or something like that?
There's a huge series of events. Like, it's never explained, obviously in the viral marketing, whether it's alien or whether it was always earthly or anything like that.
But what we do know for sure is that it's a newborn, essentially. Like, it's a baby. And it's reacting to everything out of fear. Like, that's why it's attacking us. It doesn't understand its new environment. It's attacking the city because everything's trying to fight at it. It doesn't understand building structures and all that. So it just it's rampaging because it can't find its mother, essentially. So the psychology of the monster is kind of fascinating by itself. But then you add in the fact that it's like, it has questionable origin, and you don't really know exactly 100% where it came from, what it is, what it turned into from. It's just one of those things where it's like, the less you know, it's probably the better, because it really adds to the mystique of it.
And in the film itself, they don't really state any of that. You'd have to look into the viral marketing or conversations with the monster designer Neville Page before you really got that kind of information. The movie gives you fleeting glimpses of the monsters and basically that clip at the very end of what looks to be a satellite falling into the ocean.
Yeah, that's the satellite that's mentioned in the viral marketing.
Yeah, and that's fine. That's great, actually, because this is a movie about limited perspectives. We shouldn't have all that information.
Yeah.
Which makes it all the more terrifying.
And the cool thing about them deciding that the Clover was a newborn was it helped Paige design pieces of it. Like, that's why it's hunched over, is because a baby would be hunched over like that. Like, the mother would probably be more bipedal. But they also designed sequences. Like, originally, apparently, in the script, it was Clover's hand that, like, took down the bridge. Once they decided it was infant, everything it does is kind of accidental or out of curiosity. So that's why they changed it to Clover's tail knocks down the bridge. So it didn't seem like he was purposely taking it down. He's just rampaging and scared.
Which again just makes it more terrifying. It's almost kind of a Lovecraftian in a certain way. Because the thing that made Lovecraft's stories so deeply disturbing, and the stuff that comes from that school so deeply disturbing, isn't the idea that there are these big, terrible things out there meaning us harm. It's that there are these big, terrible things out there that have no idea that we exist and might just step on us one day without realizing it.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to suggest all the racism, but that's pretty terrifying too.
I mean, that could be in there. You don't know. There's a lot of white people in Cloverfield.
I think what's fascinating is that it all leads up to a really key moment in the movie at the end where Hud, who is the audience perspective character, encounters the monster up close, and it eats him, or bites his head off, or bites into him. I was actually surprised.
He tears him in half and eats him. If you can see his torso fall away from his body.
See his legs, go in one direction.
Please will know.
But that's interesting because that's really the only seemingly intentional casualty of the entire movie, and that is like, you could really argue that he just wanted to. He saw this thing and he just wanted to see what it tasted like essentially like a shark kind of getting a nibble of a human.
They did cut out the weird arm tentacle things in Cloverfield sucking people in and eating them. Marlena mentions it, but they cut out the scene.
I do find it kind of interesting that the character deaths normally aren't super explicit in the movie. Like, we get Hud being bit in half, that was really obvious. But some of the other characters, like, yeah, well, she explodes off screen, so you just see blood and you don't really know what happens. For all you know, she went into shock and, like, doctors knocked her out. Not likely, she exploded. But
I'm gonna argue anyway.
Her stomach is clearly, like, exploded, but
she could have became Voltron.
She could have became Voltron.
Is Lizzie Kaplan Voltron?
But, like, some of the other characters, you know, you got a helicopter crash where you don't see, like, mangled body parts sitting out in the field. You've got another character who falls off a bridge. I like how not graphic these deaths are, because it goes back to that point of everything in the movie needs to have a limited perspective to make this work. It's got to be all that confusion and that first-hand encounter of what's happening, what's going on.
And ultimately what that does is it makes the movie, and this is going to sound really silly, but I'm serious when I say this, it makes the movie really realistic.
It does. I mean, that's kind of why the found footage aspect of it is so much more interesting than others, because, I mean, going back from where Cloverfield actually comes from is from Abrams feeling that America needs their own kind of monster.
Yeah, their own kaiju, essentially.
Yeah, and just like where Godzilla came from the aftermath of the A-bomb and all that, Cloverfield comes from a post 9/11 world. It uses 9/11 imagery, it uses 9/11 fears, and all of that, and the fact that it's found footage because that's American culture. Everybody would be filming everything.
I mean, the fact that it attacks New York by itself, I mean, that even the poster has imagery that's just blatantly 9/11.
It's one really long allegory.
And, you know, the American symbol, the Statue of Liberty itself, is the first thing they see rolling down the street.
And I'd like to talk about that for a moment because I find it very fascinating that the 9/11 imagery in Cloverfield works so well, and this was only relatively close to 9/11.
7 years, I think, right?
Yeah, 7
Yet,
years.
when you see a movie like Man of Steel, which uses nearly the same level of 9/11 imagery, it comes across as monumentally tacky and does not work at all. I think with those two movies, there's a very clear difference between catharsis and exploitation. I don't know if that's a time thing or just intent.
Oh, it's context. I think it's entirely context-based, because one thing with Superman and Man of Steel is that people aren't going into it thinking, okay, what is this movie? What is this movie trying to do? What is this movie trying to say? We have certain expectations that are preconceived with a summer blockbuster superhero movie. And that does not include things like the destruction of Metropolis. That just comes across as really tacky and really horrible.
It's a gut punch that's just arbitrarily thrown in there to get you invested in something, rather than Cloverfield, which was an active act of catharsis.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Cloverfield was essentially like trying to get the shockwave of what happened finally out of our systems by just blowing it up to astronomical proportions.
If I can interrupt for 1 second here. Next time someone asks MB a Batman or Superman related question, can we please stop the podcast and start playing X Gonna Give It To You before he goes into his response, and then add a mic drop at the end?
Yes.
I would love that. I would love that so much, because I feel like I'm always sitting down for a great education every time. It's like, MB, please educate us using Batman as a lens. Oh, excellent.
I have editing work now.
Professor MB has entered the building.
Pause real quick.
Yeah.
Is it me or does Cody sound like he's in a bowl?
You sound a little muffled.
It's probably the poncho.
Yeah, you're a little.
Hold on, let me take some layers of poncho off.
Actually, you sound
Okay.
better. You sound good.
Okay, you sound way better, actually.
I had the whole poncho wrapped around it, now it's just one layer.
You have to use the poncho sparingly.
No,
You went too
poncho
far,
everything.
man.
You can't poncho too far.
I'm leaving this in. I just want to explain. Cody wraps his microphone in a, utility poncho?
Well, technically, the other poncho I have is utility poncho.
Oh,
I haven't named this one yet. I haven't worn out in public, so I haven't gotten a
It's the
feel for
Yeti
it.
poncho.
The Yeti? Oh, I like that. Yeah, I'm going to use that.
Hey, anyway, back to Cloverfield. And 9/11 imagery.
Right, I'm sorry. I cut someone off to make an X Gonna Give It To You joke.
But, Mike, you had something to say.
Well, there's a big difference between using 9/11 imagery and that kind of allegory on a purely surface level. And that's what stuff like Man of Steel does. It uses it on a surface level.
It's poking you and saying, hey, remember when you felt sad about this?
Yeah, it's just like that. Cloverfield treats that stuff like it.
No, that's a really good point. The whole film is essentially that experience of going through 9/11. You could say exploitive because it's using that to make a horror movie, but really that was the experience. If you went through 9/11, I'm sure it was just mind-bendingly terrifying to be in that kind of situation, not knowing what's happening, but just knowing your city's under attack by some sort of mysterious force.
Trying to get out, trying to see who you know is still alive, trying to get to people, your family calling to see if you're okay.
Well, I also think it's a world of difference when the intention of the actually using that allegory is bolstering something negative, which is very much what a horror movie does, is bolstering a very horrifying circumstance. And something like Man of Steel, which is meant to be displaying something positive and using that in the midst of it. It's just very out of place. It doesn't make any sense, and it's just tacky. It was there just to be there.
And I guess with this, it's not like there's a false sense of patriotism to any of this. It's not like they're promoting the film like, hey, this is a 9/11-like movie. It's basically, this is a horror movie, and during 9/11, there was this terrifying mystery, and that's what drives this movie in a similar sense of mysterious dread. So it's using that feeling to make another connection, more so than trying to make a point about 9/11, I would say, like a political point or anything like that.
Yeah, well, that's the highest purpose of horror as a genre, is to take the things people are actually afraid of and then put them through a funhouse lens to stretch them up and make them something slightly out of the ordinary, enough for us to manage them. 'Cause, I mean, that's what horror is. It's just the exaggeration of something real made tangible.
And with something like Cloverfield, I think that it's also important to note that 9/11, while an allegory, is also basically a template for how to make something like this incredibly palpable, as opposed to something that is just, we've got to make this something that mirrors 9/11. Like, we got to remind people that happened. Like, I don't think it was necessarily that, more than just, we have a real world source for this now. Let's use that, but use it to bolster up more of what the experience should be, as opposed to just tackily just trying to say, oh, look, 9/11. Like,
It's culturally, it's not just there to go, hey, remember when that happened?
well, I would say it's comparable to the early slasher films using the real-life portrait of Ed Gein, where you have a real-world outlet for this now. You have context, you have something that pre-existed to kind of influence what came later, because obviously Ed Gein influenced a number of slasher characters like Norman Bates and Leatherface and all that, but they're not just Ed Gein with a slight twist, they're complete exaggerations. And I feel like Cloverfield's destruction is a complete exaggeration of 9/11, because 9/11 was two buildings that went down. Cloverfield is a citywide attack. Like, it is a citywide destruction path that just lays waste.
And I think it's fascinating to look at the success culturally, critically, financially of Cloverfield, and look at any of the other mandated, we have to talk about 9/11 movies that came out roughly the same time. And God, remember World Trade Center starring Nicolas Cage?
Oof.
That wasn't United 93, was it?
No.
That was a different one.
993 was the
They
Paul
do
Greengrass
reference
movie.
United 93 when they were doing the helicopter crash.
Yeah, they used
Apparently-
the same company did the effects.
Yeah, Matt Reeves told him specifically, like, make it exactly like that movie, because he was so invested in that scene in theaters, it impacted him so much. Also, man, this is like, anyone listening to this is just going to have huge whiplash. We go from making Voltron jokes for 20 minutes to a lengthy, in-depth conversation of how exploitive movies can be towards 9/11.
Nothing
It's the
sums
Box
Box
Office
Office Pulp up more. Exactly. Like, that's what Box Office Pulp is.
But I do think that's something very important to remember, that when it comes to dealing with tragedy and dealing with the cancer that can grow in the public consciousness, it's usually the junk food that is more healing and more cathartic than the stuff we're supposed to use to deal with this kind of stuff.
Well, nobody likes
That's why
to be...
I only watch the Transformers movies to learn about international politics.
Well, nobody likes to be talked down to about something that they themselves experience. They just want to have an escape from stuff like that. And this, while giving a glimpse into the lens of what it was like to be there on that day in New York, still gives us enough of an escape to where we can separate it entirely from reality if we want to, and it gives us that option. But if we want to take it as it's a mirror of our real lives, we can also do that. It gives us choice. It gives us power. It gives us the idea of entertainment as we choose to ingest it.
It gives a safe context to deal with all that horrifying image. It's the chaos and the fear and the unknowing of that day and everything that came after it. But there's a giant monster, and isn't that fun?
Yeah, like, it would have been such a mistake to make a movie like this, but have it be terrorist bombings or something like that. Like, if there was no science fiction element to it whatsoever, this movie would have not only been just completely a flop and a failure and been touted as a really controversial movie just on its own, it would have been despicable. This movie adds this element to where it's like, it's a celebration of something, first and foremost. It's a celebration of the horror movie genre, of the monster movie genre, and the Godzilla movies and all that stuff, and then has that as a backdrop. And that's what's important, is that it's not beating you over the head with, this is what this thing is. It's servicing the story. It's servicing the element of what's important about the film, which is it's a monster attack.
And the film doesn't stop to tell you how to feel or to remind no character stops and says, it's like 9/11 every 5 seconds. The imagery is there kind of more in the background. It's a feeling that's in the film, not the surface of the film.
Yeah.
Well, to move a little away a little bit from the 9/11 stuff,
No, sadness always.
the box office pulp way, you actually bring up something that is one of my favorite aspects of this film, and that's the fact that, despite being a kaiju movie, it's presented very much like a docudrama. Not just because of the found footage aspect, but just because of the way it treats the characters and the way it treats the backstory. So many, similar found footage movies will make the mistake of still trying to be a conventional movie in terms of scripting and character interaction. To have the characters say, okay, we have to sit down and talk about our mutual backstories now. We have to have this moment and this moment, just like we would in a regular movie. Cloverfield, again, takes the docudrama approach, where you actually feel like you're going on this journey with a handful of people who already know each other and don't feel the need to say each other's names constantly or exposit how each of them fit together. I love that we don't know how any of these characters met or how their specific friendships work, other than what's right there on film through the character interactions.
And shows that, it's kind of a lot of lazy screenwriting of just going, hey, if we just tell the audience this character's backstory, they'll be invested in them.
Yeah.
No, it's different between doing that and really spending time with the character and being invested with the character.
Well, what they do is they take it and they make it a naturalistic thing. They don't make it a scripted thing where, okay, it's this arbitrary set of events where such and such characters with these important, memorable names have to band together to fight the monster. It's literally just them trying to survive and escape a city under attack, and it's a bunch of people that were having a party. Just a bunch of one-name people. You don't even know their full names. It's just they know each other by a first-name basis because nobody goes, oh, it's Rob such and such. It's just Rob. It's just Mike. It's just, Mike Vogel is the actor.
Jason.
But, yeah, Jason. But,
I'd say Jason's death is one of my favorite things. It comes from a place of just everything goes crazy and then he's dead. You never see a body or anything like that. You don't even see exactly what happened to him, but he's dead. And the characters deal with that and are a mess because of that, because you have the girlfriend there and the brother there. But the movie doesn't, okay, let's sit down and let's talk about Jason's childhood.
all it takes is one short scene of him calling his mom to say that Jason is dead and having to tearfully explain that
it's alive, it's huge.
Yeah. Yeah,
Voltron killed him.
He was so happy.
The lion ate him, Mom.
He got
Just
caught
like he always
between
wanted.
lions while they were connecting.
That has to happen.
But just little stuff like that, and also the fact that they can't really sit down to do stuff like that because they have to keep moving. That's the entire, that's the crux of the movie, is that no matter what happens, they can't really just stay in one location for very long because eventually things go haywire everywhere they go. Even somewhere that should logistically be safe, like the subway tunnel, something goes really horribly awry. A government facility, something goes really horribly awry. It's it never stops. And that's what's great about it, is that it presents it like it would actually happen, because it wouldn't stop. It wouldn't just conveniently, dramatically let you gather your thoughts if this thing were actually attacking. It would be a relentless attack where you probably wouldn't survive, but if you were lucky enough, you would just keep running.
And one of the absolute best aspects of the movie is that for a found footage movie about a giant monster rampaging through New York, it has some of the most naturalistic, realistic characters in most genre films. They react like most people would react to things. And what I like is that there's all this drama leading up to the monster attack. And then once that happens, all that drama is bullshit and doesn't matter anymore.
And also, something you and I talked about many months ago, this is going back years, but I think one of your initial reactions to this movie was it has the most realistic love story you've ever seen.
Yeah, it does.
And it's startling because it's two exes who broke up over really petty reasons on both sides, and neither are really the good guy. And then this monster attack happens, and immediately the guy is concerned about where she is. And it's not like, oh, he has to get over what she did in order to find her in this monster attack. It's like, no, we need to get her out of there.
Or they're still squabbling about things. It's just all that stuff's over with now.
Yeah, because something more important.
You don't have a scene of Hud sitting down and saying to Marlena, I remember the first time Rob met Beth. It's the summer of 2004. We were at a co-ed party, and when she walked in, the world stopped.
I want to see T.J. Miller do that, though.
Can that be in Deadpool too?
What's funny is that also you mentioned T.J. Miller, but that's actually a good springboard into yet another realistic story in the movie, which is Hud and Marlena's relationship, where he is desperately trying to make any sort of connection with her, even as this is going on. And by the end of it, she's kind of a little bit endeared to him, but not really.
There's no movie thing where they suddenly fall in love for no particular reason.
No.
Like the closest we get is when she's about to explode, she calls for Hud before she mentions she's not feeling well.
Yeah.
I mean, part of that could be he's the one standing right next to her, or it could be because he's the one who made the most effort to talk to her. It's a sweet little touch.
Yeah.
They're like, at best, like they made some sort of friendship over the night before she exploded and he was ripped in half by a giant tentacle monster.
And
this is all we can hope for from life.
Really, that's on my bucket list.
The most he deals with it is he needs to be given a moment to just kind of mentally work through the fact that she just died horribly, and Rob comes up to him and says, like, I'm sorry, man. Like, I know that's a really huge bummer.
I like how the comedic audience surrogate had to have a breakdown.
I love how sad Hud is that Marlena explodes. That's such a jarring moment. It just feels real.
That's one of the main things I really like about the movie is the maybe not realistic tone of it, because it is about a giant Godzilla monster destroying New York and throwing Empire State Building pieces around, but it feels naturalistic. So while you're watching this, it's easy to buy into the illusion based on the way they filmed it, based on the way they set everything up. You know, they want to make a really large-scale movie, but not make it feel theatrical. They want to make it feel like it's real without being realistic. That's the kind of distinction I'm making here. And one of the best parts to me is the start of the movie doesn't have your standard horror movie, hey, these characters in a horror movie and they're acting like they're in a horror movie setups. You know, like most horror movies start with a character walking down a hallway that's not really that spooky, but they're treating it real spooky, and they hesitate when they're opening doors, and then maybe a cat jumps at them and creeps them out for no reason.
Everyone is in a horror movie.
Everyone is
Right,
so goddamn on edge in a horror movie.
They go through their life terrified, like some random person shows up at their house and they almost shit themselves, and then, it's okay. And you don't get this in this movie. They're having a normal day. They're just at a party. Everyone's having more or less a good time, except for random relationship trauma. And then all of a sudden, shit goes down. It feels very natural, because when scary stuff happens to me, I'm normally not on edge 20 minutes beforehand for no goddamn reason.
You're the bag boy. I'm sorry. I'm just here passing through this small town grocery store.
My thing is always, I wonder how difficult it is for these people to have cats. Because they always have that fucking cat that just bursts out at the last minute. Oh god, Mr. Fluffers.
Or like that scene in Sinister where the kid is sleepwalking, just bursts out of a box for no particular reason. The funniest thing.
Screaming.
What is it?
Oh!
Well, what's funny is
I honestly really enjoy Sinister, but yes, that movie stands out. Or that moment stands out.
Actually, what's really funny is that you mentioned that I just literally watched Alien last night, and that features a cat at a couple different points just doing that. Like, that's...
Cats.
That's exemplified.
You know, if you own a cat, you're probably in a horror movie. You just don't know it yet.
And get out of there.
Horror movie? I bet you are. It's too late.
Oh, it's live. It's huge.
And podcast.
But one of the things
that's my best hammer falling down noise. If you're curious.
That was weird.
Did it fall in something wet?
No, my suit.
Blood.
I was
Blood. It just fell on all of your blood.
It was cold, Cody. It was supposed to be cold.
Hey man, gazpacho.
Back to Cloverfield, you were saying.
One of the things that is amazing about this movie is that what adds to, and what is a very small thing that I think goes unnoticed, is that what adds to the realism and the naturalism of the movie is that there's no score.
Oh, we have to talk about the sound design. Because the thing that struck me
That's
the first
true.
time
That's a huge part of this movie.
was how they utilize distant sound or even the humming of fluorescent lights or anything as dramatic stings or moody music. Like, they create ambiance from the sound design. That moment where Rob's got the other cell phone to work and he's trying to get a message from Beth, like he was able to get a battery in there. The way everything goes quiet and you just hear in the distance, boom, like from tanks firing or Clover walking around, and that's kind of it's the dramatic music for the scene as her message kicks in. And I was just so blown away about the attention of detail in scenes like that.
And what I love is that all builds up as the movie goes on, because as they get closer to the action, like as they're going to Beth's apartment building to try and get her out, it's loud as hell. Like it fills the sound design. Like it's like they're only a couple blocks away and you actually feel it. You feel it as opposed to just you hear it. You actually feel it like, oh God, they're just like right outside. It works so well. Like, it's such a well-directed, well-made movie that at no point do you stop to question the logic. Do you stop to question, like, well, that wouldn't really happen. Like, it feels like it did happen already.
Or the basics of why is that guy recording everything? You know, why doesn't he just put the camera down?
America.
Some people are never able to get behind a found footage movie. But the sound design to me, the most impressive aspect is I can pop this Blu-ray in and watch this movie on normal sound, and it still gets me a little bit because the sound design is just so fantastic, and the technical aspect of it is amazing on home video as well. Like, the bass rumbles are so deep, when stuff's falling down, you actually kind of feel that little bit of tremble in your room, and that's without cranking the volume way up to get the benefit of that. It's just very well done.
Well, one of the things that I actually really love about the sound design is one particular scene, and it's just a really split-second shot to set up the later subway sequence, but it's whenever Clover briefly brushes against a building and you see like the little parasites dropping off of him. It sounds like rubble. It sounds like rubble, like just crumbling. And it sounds like what you would imagine that to actually sound like, but they don't have any basis for that. They wouldn't know what that would actually sound like, so they just went for that, and it works because you buy it. Like, it just sounds like something is being dropped out of like a paper bag, or like a bunch of little small objects are hitting the ground, and it has such a naturalistic quality that I can't quite pinpoint, but it's just so effective because how would you design a sound for something like that? Even Clover's roar.
Clover's roar is impressive.
Like, it's not Godzilla. It's not like just a monster or a identifiable animal. It's something else entirely. It's like a screech, but not really. Like, it's not that annoying.
And they went at it from the direction of it's a scared creature and it's trying to find its mother and it's constantly freaking out. So the roars aren't these incredibly, like, it has a very distinctive roar. Like, if you hear Clover's roar, you would recognize it. But it's not this, like, Godzilla roar of, like, sheer power. It sounds kind of fearful and a little, it sounds animalistic in some way.
It sounds like a scream.
Yeah.
But as far as soundtrack goes, we say this movie, the movie itself does not have a score, but we have to talk about the Cloverfield Overture.
Roar!
Because Goddard was like, okay, this movie can't have a score, but what if it did? And that gives us our closing credits soundtrack, which is a legitimately amazing piece of music. I still want to see a cut where that's implemented throughout the movie.
Isn't it Michael Giacchino?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Giacchino.
Oh,
It is, yep. Turns out he's a huge monster fan.
Yes, it's just one long, like, 12-minute ode to the old Godzilla theme, and it is beautiful.
That was my first actual I mean, this was my first exposure to a lot of things. Like, this was my first exposure to Matt Reeves, to Drew Goddard, to any of the actors. This was also my first exposure to Michael Giacchino's work, which is just, I've become such a huge fan of over the years, like with Star Trek and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, he's one of the most underrated big composers working today. His stuff for Lost was amazing.
To me, he's the new John Williams.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Like,
I kind of wish
would
he'd gotten the
actually,
Star Wars job, actually.
Same. I'd like to see him at least, like, yeah, maybe, like, help out in Star Wars, just to kind of, like, take the torch for the future.
yeah, because, I mean,
Oh,
we
do you
don't
think
know.
Williams is actually going to do all 3 entries in the new trilogy?
I mean, he said he is. So if he's alive
Yeah,
through all
alright.
3 entries...
I mean, he's got one down. He seems to be in good health. I mean, he is, what, 90?
He's
that old? 80?
Pretty old. Well, the thing is also with Star Wars is there's such a library of music created by Williams at this point. Even if he dies, you really don't need to have any new music for like another 20 films before you run out.
He's been stockpiling.
Yeah, I can't believe, like, what did Reeves do? Just, he didn't do a feature before Cloverfield, did he? I don't remember.
I think this was
I
his first film.
don't think so. He was friends with J.J. Abrams, so I think he kind of used that to parlay into a... I shouldn't say his friendship is the only reason he got a career, but I'm sure it helped having networking, deals.
Well, yeah, Bad Robot was a huge component of this.
This was the, like,
I think...
premiere Bad Robot film, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, before that, it was a lot of TV stuff. I think Matt Reeves was, like, one of the driving forces for getting Alias made, if I'm remembering right.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, Cloverfield was piggybacking off of the success of Lost. Remember
Okay.
one of the initial theories for the monster was that it was, in fact, the bad robot, which I still want to see.
That
Okay,
cute robot just destroying the world.
Okay, I looked into Matt Reeves' career, and the only thing he did before Cloverfield was he co-created Felicity.
Yeah, it's Felicity.
Wow.
That's it.
Oh, okay, there we go. He had, I think it's a movie. It's, the Pallbearer, which I'm not familiar with, in 96.
96?
1996. It was like one
He was
movie
a
he did.
co-writer. Yeah.
It's got David Schwimmer.
David Schwimmer.
Oh god, I remember that movie.
He was a co-writer and director of it.
Oh, wow.
A young man's life is thrown into a loop when he is asked to be a pallbearer for a funeral for a classmate he doesn't remember. And his old high school crush temporarily returns to town.
Fucking old.
So I probably will not be watching that. But I mean, the movies he's come up with afterwards, we've got Cloverfield, Let Me In, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. All pretty good stuff.
But seriously, how old was he when he made that? They made that other movie. I was watching the behind-the-scenes stuff for Cloverfield, and he looks like he's fucking 20.
He's
He was
50.
born in 66.
Jesus,
Wow.
Right? He's a very youthful looking
very
guy.
youthful dude.
He's kind of like Zack Snyder in that you don't imagine Zack Snyder is the age that he actually is.
I have to say, I recently found out Zack Snyder is from Wisconsin, which should give me no amount of pride, but it does. Like, someone famous from my state, and I don't get it. And I think every person in my state feels the same way. If someone mentions Wisconsin in, like, a large context, like if it appears on the news or on, like, a website, everyone will go into the comments like, I'm from Wisconsin, ah!
Is that why?
It's a shared feature of our people.
Is that why in Superman's introduction in Dawn of Justice, him eating a wheel of cheese?
I don't see why that'd be a bad thing. More characters should do that in movies.
That would actually legitimately improve Man of Steel, I have to say.
He eats the entire wedge in one bite. That's his
Oh,
new
God,
superpower. He can unhinge his jaw.
That's what Batman v Superman is about, is just Superman eating cheese, Batman's eating those pancakes from Batman Forever. And they just...
Do you eat cheese? You will.
I already eat cheese. It's
Superman is actually lactose intolerant. He uses that to take him down.
That's how they defeat him instead of kryptonite. No, he falls to his knees.
He's super dude.
I feel loaded. A masterstroke reference.
Lex Luthor comes in dressed as Superman, as played by Amanda Bynes.
Okay, can we just end the podcast there?
We've been going for probably as long as the movie, I think, at this point, right?
The movie is 80 minutes
A little
long.
over an hour.
I forgot how fucking short
Yeah.
that was. It's the length of a DV tape. I forgot they designed it that way.
Oh, that makes sense. Clever guy. Well, I mean, one last thing I want to throw out here. Just look at the talent involved with this movie. J.J. Abrams is just a fantastic producer. He gets a lot of great things done. Matt Reeves, not a lot of movies under his belt, but the ones that he has out there, barring the Paul Barracks, I haven't seen it, I can't judge it, are fantastic. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes has no right to be as good as it is. And Let Me In, it's basically a shot-for-shot remake, and yet it stands pretty well on its own, I think. And Drew Goddard writing the script here, I'm hoping he gets more attention, because the last couple of projects he's been on have just turned out fantastic. His work in The Martian, just top-notch. Obviously,
Daredevil.
Cabin in the Woods is amazing. Yeah, Daredevil.
I mean, he's dead
guy
to
needs
Marvel now, but
Which is unfortunate, because I really would have liked to see what else he could have done for
Yeah,
him.
he's still working on season 2 of Daredevil.
Did he, or was that just glorified, executive producer credit?
No, he actually did. He was in the writer's room.
oh really? Because I thought after that was one of the things that was revealed in the leak that he was just dead to them.
He was, but apparently they repaired shit. I have no idea.
That's great.
He just wouldn't leave. He was napping in there.
Well, the thing is that he was mostly that because he went to work for Sony on the Spider-Man franchise to do Sinister Six for a while.
Yeah.
I think Ike
Never throw your
Perlmutter-
lot in with Sony.
Perlmutter, I think, was the one who hated him.
Yeah, and now that Ike Perlmutter is no longer a part of the film division now, they're
Well, actually,
Same
technically
people
he
can-
is part of the TV division, but I just don't think he cares anymore.
Well, fuck it. Who cares about that? I mean, we're still getting good TV through Netflix, so apparently he's not messing with that much. We can still get Goddard back onto a movie project, because Marvel's got 1,000 of those in production.
God, could we please get Drew Goddard making the Spider-Man film?
No.
man.
Werewolf by Night. No
Yeah.
one would
Yes.
expect it.
an interview.
So what the whole point of this podcast was just give us more Drew Goddard right now, world. Right
Or
now.
Drew Goddard. Always with his weird purple suit. That's all I think of when I think of Drew Goddard, was at the premiere of Cloverfield, he showed up in a purple suit. Like he's the Joker. For no reason. It was just weird. The screenwriter has shown up wearing a flamboyant outfit.
No one was going to recognize me.
A wild Goddard appears.
Give him things to direct. God damn it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wild Goddard appears is huge.
And give us Cloverfield too.
The real
Isn't
one.
that the suggested idea? If they made a third Cloverfield, it would somehow tie 1 and 2 together?
Yes. Apparently.
Abrams has said that. I don't understand how he would do that. I'm honestly, at this rate, it feels like 10 Cloverfield Lane is the Halloween 3 of this franchise, which I'm kind of opposed to, because I like the idea of each Cloverfield being a completely different thing. It's basically an anthology movie, and they just use that Cloverfield notoriety to draw you in. It's just a secretive project that could be anything.
You're just
As long as
keeping
at
the
least,
idea of a small personal story being told with the canvas of, a large world-changing story.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, as long as good films are continued to be made out of it, then I don't care what they do, but I will always kind of miss the idea of them doing what Abrams always said they would do, which is do the exact same attack, but from another group's perspective, which I think would have been fascinating.
It's so frustrating too because right after Cloverfield came out, it was a huge success. Reeves was signed on to direct the second one. It was essentially greenlit. They were talking about it constantly.
Yeah.
Apparently they still do talk about it, and apparently kind of the thing that put it on the back burner was Godzilla and Pacific Rim, which I think is a lame
Yeah, one of
excuse, but whatever.
One of the things I heard, too, was the Goddard kind of stepped out and said, well, one of the original ideas was we could show this from someone else's point of view, but are we treading too much of the same ground? Or are we just telling the same story again with different characters? And he kind of seemed like he was not too confident that it would work out and be fresh enough. So they kind of wanted to wait until they had a different idea of events. And that never really happened. Everyone else got busy and popular and just, stagnated.
At least they're talking about it again.
Also, as far as Pacific Rim and Godzilla goes, those are so far removed from the release date of Cloverfield, that seems weird to say that those kind of had an factor.
Because I remember, Cloverfield 2 was, being fast-tracked, it seemed. That was going to be going into production the following year, and then just evaporated.
And they were asking him about, they were asking Abrams about that in pretty much every interview as he was doing these other films like Mission Impossible. Did he do Mission Impossible 3 after?
3 was before.
3 was before.
Next was Star Trek.
Yeah, Star Trek, but they were asking him about it during that, and then during Star Trek Into Darkness, they were still asking him that, and that's around the time that Pacific Rim came out. So it's it's still one of those projects that they've always constantly wanted him to do, or wanted news on. It's just, they just never did it for whatever reason. So
The answer is always the same, which if you ask any of them, they always say that they still talk and work on a story constantly. They just haven't really...
It's all he's been doing for 3 years. Someone else wrote Star Wars for him, and he just showed up a shell of a man inside thinking nothing but Cloverfield.
Nothing but Cloverfield.
I guess the problem... Go on.
At least now, with what stuff Abrams has been saying, and even Reeves and Goddard, is the idea of a Cloverfield 3, like a true sequel, seems to be ticking forward in a bigger way. What kind of sequel that will be, who the hell knows, but...
I think the important thing to take away from it, though, is that at the end of the day, the biggest hurdle that a Cloverfield sequel would go through is the fact that it would have to be alive and huge.
And Voltron.
Voltron assemble!
What again?
That's the sound of organs rupturing. Don't you know that war is hell?
And see.
If you like this show, remember to subscribe and rate us on iTunes and on Stitcher, where you can also find us, and follow along with us on Facebook at facebook.com/boxofficepulp. And of course, our site is boxofficepulp.blogspot.com, where you can find all links like this. And if you are amused by this show, and I want you to think about that.
Let's face it, you will not be. The more realistic answer to all of this is you are not a fan of this show, you don't like it. Give the other shows a chance anyway, for the love of God.
Yeah,
they're better than this.
Stop being naturalistic. Stop being naturalistic like the characters in Cloverfield, and instead go for liking this show and wanting to hear more from the Pulp Podcast Network, like graphic novelism,
where we talk about comic books.
Yes, which stars Jem and James Lewis, Maniacal Mike Napier, and myself,
who shall remain a mystery.
Anonymous.
And you can find that.
We can never get through this part. We can just never.
And you can. I'm trying to speed through it, man. And you can find that at graphicnovelism.blogspot.com, where you can also go to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook.
You can also check out Below the Bible Belt, which is Southern hospitality delivered monthly by James Lewis and, not on the show, Matt Johnson.
A Below the Bible Belt fan.
Which you can find at belowthebiblebelt.blogspot.com or facebook.com/belowthebiblebelt. You can also find them on iTunes and Stitcher. I just did your job for you, James.
I will say, it's belowbiblebelt.blogspot.com, and I've never understood why.
Neither have I.
Well, I understood why, and that's belowthebiblebelt.blogspot.com is taken. I know this because I constantly type that in, and it takes me to a random, unrelated blog.
One and nobody wants to visit.
No.
James, you have an announcement to make.
I do. Starting...
Is it a girl or a boy?
I'll never tell.
Ding. This was your perfect opportunity to say, it's a girl.
Okay, we'll just head this way. It's a girl. A super girl.
I'm leaving that
in. So close. So close.
So I have a brand new podcast on the Pulp Podcast Network, Supergirl Power Hour, starring me and stranger to all of our podcasts, Corey McCreary.
Strangers? I don't like outsiders.
Where we go through weird-ass back issues of the old Supergirl comics. It's amazing. And you can check that out at supergirlpowerhour.com, superpowerhour.blogspot.com, and on iTunes. And check us out on Facebook under Supergirl Power Hour.
Yes, and soon to be on Stitcher.
Yeah. I just like saying Supergirl Power Hour as much as humanly possible.
I still think you should have gone with Supergirl Muscle Hour, but that's just me. And to find links to all those shows and more shows, go to pulppodcastnetwork.wordpress.com. You can find the entire lineup of Pulp Podcast Network shows.
Cross promotion.
I was really trying to stay quiet for like the first half because I thought Mike was just laying down like a template, so we just cut and pasted into each one. And if there's no reaction, it'd be perfect for that. And then we fucked up.
It's
it was funny.
We have talked about doing that for the last couple of weeks. You have no idea.
I like the stupid version, but wait, let's stop talking about it.
You've come to the right group if you want the stupid version.
Let's end the show now.
I thought it was already done.
End the show, Cody.
That's a wrap, everybody.
Get the hell out of here.
helped. Thank you. I mean...
And like that,
He's gone.
It's a Cody. It's huge.
Cody's Voltron?
God, I'm gonna love the opening to this episode, and I'm just fascinated on how you're gonna make it work.
I don't know. I don't even know where to cut in. It's so confusing.
Perfect.
This is Box Office Pulp Guy, and this has been a Pulp Podcast production. Now please, 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 put a gun in my mouth and pull the trigger and say goodnight.
And now, on with the show.
As we all know, Superman arrived on Earth in a space rocket long ago, when he was Super Baby. The Man of Steel has always thought he was the sole survivor of the tragic catastrophe that destroyed his home world, Krypton. But fate has many strange twists, for this is not an ordinary tale of Superman, but the launching of a new member of our super family. So, without further ado, we take pride in introducing...
Great guns! I seem to see a youngster flying, dressed in a super costume. It must be an illusion.
Look again, Superman! It's me, Supergirl, and I'm real! The Supergirl Power Hour, a monthly look at the Maid of Might. Coming soon to the Pulp Podcast Network.
And it all girl, it's true.